again, and welcome to Lesson 9 Continued. What we're going to do in this lesson is finish painting all of our secondary characters. So we got one robot left and two secondary soldiers left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to address that last robot first, because he's really going to be the simplest. He's probably going to be the simplest thing in this entire painting. And that is because he is really just a black shape. So I'm going to trace him, his head, and really the greatest degree of rendering on this head is going to be maybe just some soft underlighting. Other than that, he's literally just acting as a frame. He's something that's pointing into the center to draw our eye to our focal point. Take the line art off. And I'm going to fill him with pure black. There we are. Refine the edges a little bit. And I'm thinking we might add a couple lights on him, but they'll be very subtle. We'll have to go about that very carefully, because a light is something that can draw attention away from your focal point, and we do not want to do that. So now I'm going to make a layer, a new layer, and begin finding the underside, or rather the undersides, the many undersides of the of this head shape. I'm going to give those a very low value grayish blue. Now that might be too bright. So bring it down even lower to something like that. And I might want to make it a little more saturated too. Somewhere in there. Now I'll find another section of that shape. Curve it by darkening it. To create the illusion that that surface is turning away from the bounce light. Now I'm going to take a soft airbrush and use it as an eraser, and with a little bit of noise added in there, I'll kind of erase away some of this. The ends of the bounce light surfaces that are reaching toward the left side of our canvas. I really want these to be a blue, so I'm going to saturate them even more. Something like that. And I'll go ahead and merge that. See if there's anything cool if I sort of brighten up some shapes here and there. I think that's nice. It's very subtle. But again, it's another layer of interest that is not distracting, but it's just there. Just adding more value to our painting that way. Just creating shapes. These might be plates screwed onto the side of the robot's head. I'd say that that's about enough interior detail for that shape. Most important thing about that is exactly, just the shape. Maybe we'll cut a little bit out of it, make it a little more dynamic. Yeah, I think that looks good. And again, add some wires, kind of dangling. Maybe something like that for the ribbed pipe. And that is good. So our last attempt on this guy here, our last experiment, is to add a little bit of light, or some lights, on him. Like I said, I want these to be really subtle. I don't want them to steal attention from the rest of the painting. So I'm going to choose a cool color. Go ahead and start painting these square lights. And already those values are a little too bright. But right now I'm just concerned about the shape. So I'm going to bring them down brightness a whole bunch. Saturate them. And make a new layer parented to them. And now in these squares, I will paint the faint traces of the haze that, let's say, a small bulb of light in there would create. And I'll try lowering the brightness again. And I think that's good. Let's try just one more shade of blue in there. Yeah, I think that really helped it out. Flatten all that down, and that is our last robot. Big accomplishment. So, now we can move on to our two other soldiers. Let's flip on the line art real quick and see where they're at. Take care of the downed soldier here first. I'm going to place him behind that ground layer, so I don't have to worry about his bottom portion. I can just focus on the highlights that are going to be on his front side facing upward. I'm just going to sample out of the same colors off that first soldier we did. And that ought to work fine. Now in the end, when we are done rendering all of our painting, we'll go in and we'll adjust values again with the brightness and contrast tool. And we'll really pinpoint the correct values for everything. And our goal there is to just make everything read very clearly, or as clearly as possible. Make a new layer, and on this layer we'll give him his brightest highlights. Kick it up a step higher. It's great as looking, so we'll merge that. Continue to work on them. You know, I think I want to put his arm up in the air to make it seem as though he's really helpless at this point. We'll see how this looks. Yeah, I think that's a more interesting pose. So I'll stick with it. Continue to paint out his whole hand here. Merge all those layers down. And now that I have my base values down, I'll go ahead and do his visor. Do some surface details on his uniform. Maybe a patch. Maybe I can push the shadows a little bit more. And again, Very simple value structure for these guys. They're a little bit further back in space, which means they will not receive the same range of value. And with that, he is done. He has, in this painting, served his purpose as a secondary character with a minimal value range. And now I'll make some of those very simple glows coming off him, just like our first soldier. I'm going to take an overlay brush and try to punch up his shadows on his underside here. Something like that. Alrighty. And our last man here, begin doing the trace. So I'm treating him as one big shape. And again, I'm okay doing that because he is not going to be very complicated. That'll be his base tone, and I think he should be smaller. Right in there. Make a new layer and begin doing his highlights. Begin doing it right after I smooth out his form just a little bit. Okay. So naturally the light's going to hit him on his backpack, the back of his helmet, his collar probably, and the backs of his legs. Maybe the backs of his arms too, around his elbows. We will have to try it out and see how it looks. Great, I think it works there on the arms. Maybe we can brighten them up a little bit. Now he is the soldier who is furthest back, which means his values should really be limited. You know, 2 or 3 tones at the most. We'll do his visor. Give it just a little bit of a blue fill light. Very subtle. And I'm going to do some of that same blue fill light on the actual uniform. And I'll flatten that. Maybe pump up the contrast just a little bit. And now make a new layer for the brightest highlights. Looks good. I'll merge it. Going to select this gun now. And bring the brightness down. There we go. Now, on a new layer, I'll use the feather brush. And I will add my very subtle glows. And there you have it. Now we have all of our characters rendered out, our 3 robots, our 3 soldiers. And now, I mean, most of the groundwork, let's say the hard work, has been done. What we'll do now is we'll begin addressing some of the more minor elements, like the leaves of the trees that we have in this scene, the foliage and the forest in the background. That's going to be basically our sort of flat, varied color palette for all of our characters to play against. And then the sky. And then after that, we'll do some value correction, some color correction, and we'll do some effects that might actually punch up our focal area.